started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Milestones webinar series. And today's session is very special because what we do in these webinar series is a series of different kinds of topics and articles. Sometimes we discuss technology, sometimes we discuss trends. And today is very special because what we're going to do is combine technology trends and bring industry into perspective. So we're going to talk about what it takes to win in the financial services industry for the credit unions, for the banks, and how do you set up for success. So very excited. Our topic for today is top 5 must-haves for credit union website for 2024. Even though it says credit union in the title, it applies to any bank or for any financial institution or mortgage lending institution. I'm Anil Agarwal, CEO of Milestone. I'll be moderating today's session today. So thank you everyone for joining in. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. All attendees are in listen-in mode only. So please use the question box to answer questions. And please do ask questions because you have a very high quality panel that'll be able to address any issues, questions, or things that you may have. You will get an email recap for the webinar. In addition, you will also be able to go to our website or to a blog where we will post the recap slides and videos. And with that, what I want to do is go ahead and get started. Before I get into our panelists and talk about the session, let me give you 30 seconds on who Milestone is. We are a digital marketing platform provider, as well as we provide digital marketing services with big focus on customer acquisition and driving online leads. Started in '97, worked with several thousand customers based here in Silicon Valley, work with many different financial institutions, whether it's credit unions, banks, or lending institutions. So welcome again to the session. We're very excited to have you join us. Let me introduce our panelists. First of all, I want to introduce Steve O'Donnell, a good friend of mine. He's the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of One Nevada Credit Union. One Nevada Credit Union is a $1.3 billion federally insured state-chartered credit union in Nevada and has locations in Vegas, Henderson, Reno, and North Las Vegas. They're involved in personal banking, loans, insurance, and investments. Steve is, he oversees all the aspects of financial operations and information technology functions for the bank. A very well known and very highly respected figure in the Las Vegas markets. It's a real pleasure to have you, Steve, join us today, and welcome to the webinar. Joining him is another very esteemed panelist, Sandeep Kapoor. He's a financial consultant and an educator in the financial services in the banking industry. He's been assisting financial institutions with their omni-channel strategies, how to create a more effective branch, how to create better online experiences, great consumer engagement. Again, for several of you on this call, you might have run across Sandeep speaking at some of the other major industry conferences, or moderating and running some panels across the country. Sandeep and Steve, welcome to the webinar. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with our program here. And please do ask questions. Make sure you are putting those in the chat as we go forward. And Sandeep and Steve, Sandeep, I want to start off with, what are the biggest trends that are impacting the financial services industry, that are impacting the credit union? So I hand it off to you too.
Okay. Well, I appreciate this, Anil. Thank you so much. And thank you for the introduction. I am grateful for the opportunity to share insight. I also want to highlight a couple of things. I asked Steve, how many years ago did I meet you? I thought it was 5 or 6, and Steve came back to me and said it was something more like 14. Well, that just speaks to half of the years that we've had as far as experience in the industry. I'm a lot older than Steve. But the
And I'm
biggest
also a
thing
lot
that
better at numbers than you.
that's true, he's good at numbers too, much, much better than me. The big thing as far as impact on numbers are concerned is when we talk or when Steve explains stuff, he breaks it down to the impact. What is the value? And this one key theme that's going to keep coming up is as financial institutions, we're keen to know people, to find people, to serve them. And it's all based on engagement. Some of those are soft metrics, some of those are hard number metrics. So let's take a look at some of the key trends in our industry. I'll start with the first. So if you start looking at this, one of the key ones here is mobility. Essentially, it's not just your mobile device. The mobile device has become even smaller. It's become your phone, it's become voice, it's become AI. But the idea is that you should be able to transact on the go. Steve, I'll ask you, but just something to think about. A few years ago, having a travel agent was absolutely necessary to do complicated trips. And today, the most complicated trips are taken care of by your app. Weigh in on that and share your thoughts on mobility, please.
Yeah, I think the mobility side of things right now in the financial service industry is just extremely important. It's table stakes to have that, and what we do as an organization here is really think about that first. It's centered, but everything else evolves around that. And when you think about websites, when you think about digital services, payments, et cetera, all of that is starting to transact through your mobile wallet or your digital banking apps or other apps that you're using on that phone. The interconnectivity of all of that is just has overwhelmed us and made us just made it really easy for us to use. And so for us, what we're seeing is more shift towards people using their websites, people using their apps, people using their digital banking apps through their phone versus just sitting at a desk on their computer. And so mobility has become very important for us.
So, from mobility, let's move on to the next big trend, and that is the concept of anytime banking. The idea essentially to transact day or night. And the interesting element in the world of financial services is they're not just looking to do simple things, they're looking to do all kinds of transactions, again, day or night. And even if you were to say, Steve, compare this with what has to happen in a physical branch. Speak a little bit to that, please.
Well, the other thing I add to any time is anywhere. And that really starts dovetailing really nicely into the mobility part of it too, because it's enabling people to do whatever they want any time of the day, wherever they want. And that becomes really important. We often talk about the branch and the future focus of the branch being that digital handheld device you got in your pocket or wherever you got it. And usually it's close by. And so that means your branch is close by. And that's really shifted a lot of services and it's shifted a lot of thought too, to where now we've got to think about how do we reach people in that space. So engagement becomes really important. It has to be an important consideration going forward.
So you marry mobility and anytime into anywhere banking, but now all of a sudden the challenge you face is that the consumer can be overwhelmed with all the choices. But on the other side, financial institutions know so much about their consumers. I speak English. I only take out $60 every time I use your ATM. I use you for certain types of services. You recognize my card transactions. If you know so much about me, my income, my credit score, etc., why can't we personalize to serve you better? So you're going to see more and more trends in the world of micro segmentation, precision, that essentially is going to be the foundation of one-to-one, more and more personalization that will drive results. Steve, we have a lot of segments. We serve different types of generations. Speak to this a little, please.
This is a complex area because this is what a lot of people I think view as the holy grail right now is how do you personalize? And with the promise of what generative AI has shown out there just recently here, marrying all that with the plethora of data that we do have, is starting to be able to personalize that at a quicker and larger scale level. And I think that's been the challenge is there's so much data housed within everything that we do in every transaction. You think about just what you do on a daily basis, all of that being consumed, then you got to figure out what's useful and what's not. And so a lot of that stuff is starting to become, again, table stakes in what we need to be looking at in terms of what data is useful and what data is meaningful and what do we do to personalize on a good level for the consumer.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point. Anil, we'll go to the fourth trend. And essentially, as we look at trends, we're seeing AI. And it's almost to the point where if I am talking to a human that is serving me, I want to ask that human that have you checked with the machine to make sure that you serve me correctly? But on a lighter note, one of our favorite movies is Office Space. And in the movie Office Space, you hear the lady answering the phone again and again saying, Nina speaking, Nina speaking. On one side, we expect our team to solve complex problems, but on the other side, what we are doing is we're training the customers and members that we have to come to us and ask us mundane questions. Rather than that, AI can take care of a lot of these mundane questions. They answer those questions, they do a really good job. But one other beautiful part about AI is that how do you use it? What channels do you use it with? I know, Steve, you don't have a picture for her, but for him, speak about Sage and share who she is and what she does for the credit union.
So Sage is our AI chatbot, and I don't know if AI is responsible for me not using my stapler anymore, but that was one of my favorite props in that movie Office Space. The AI bot that we use called Sage is generally it started out in our contact center channel, but we have evolved that over into our digital banking and our website now. And we have that bot being the face of the credit union in terms of helping our members. And the goal was really to have the bot answer all of those repetitive, mundane questions. And when you really look at the questions that come in, 80% of the questions are really the same. They just ask them in a lot of different ways. And I think that, the promise of AI and using those tools, not only does it help serve your membership or your customer base, it also helps give you more data. And so with that data, we were able to learn what are the most repeatable questions or issues that members are going through. What is their sentiment through some of those issues? So we're able to learn those insights and be able to develop so it can handle more. On the flip side, one of the benefits of all of that is it enables our live agents to be able to handle those tougher interactions and spend more time. So in the past, it's been a contact center is all about getting those calls in, getting them answered, and getting them out. Now it's getting them through our bot, handling most of their issues through that, and then really dealing with the hard stuff and keeping them on the phone as long as we can to make sure that their issue's been resolved to the fullest. That's the goal for us. So we're actually looking at metrics that increase handle time, increase response time, all of those different things, which are metrics in the past you wouldn't have looked at that way.
So you bring up some really good points, and I think the key thing is that AI has just started because we're headed towards a world of open banking. I'll give a very quick summary of open banking. You remember the olden days where if you switched your telephone number, you had to change your phone provider, or basically, if you changed your phone provider, you absolutely had to change your telephone number. So we came up with this concept of phone number portability. So in many ways, look at open banking in from a couple of perspectives. So the simplistic perspective is you should be able to take your account and move it from one place to another easily. But the other aspect that's really important is why are we not connecting different financial intermediaries? Why are we not creating a platform that is cohesive? And that is where we are headed as far as open banking is concerned. Just a couple of weeks ago, Steve met with me and three other executives, and what we were trying our best to do was decipher what the CFPB has right now put in front of us. And Steve, that time to make comments has about come to a close, or has it come to a close?
I think it's about to.
It's about to come to a close. So
Yeah.
we're supposed to get some feedback back there on open banking. So the next trend I want to share here is the trend around security. This is extremely important. And the traditional way of authenticating people is going to move to a much more biometric form of authentication. And again, look at this. Look at all the other brands that you interact with, and then bring it back to us. We still have a lot of traditional checks in place. So you're going to see a big acceleration over there, right down to microtransactions. This means faster authentication in the future for even perhaps the can of soda that you get from a vending machine. There's going to be more and more impact there. The next trend here is going to be essentially around intelligence. And I bring the concept of intelligence as the seventh trend here is because what we are trying to do here is empower our people. So as Anil, you click on this, it'll highlight you can expect a human to do more, just like Steve said, if the mundane tasks are taken care of by artificial intelligence and by simplified user interfaces. That's what we are doing. That's the way you drive better results. These are some key trends in the world of financial services, and that's basically what is going to drive our challenges as we take it into the future. But keep in mind, as we move to the next slide, we're going to share with you some of the top challenges that we face as financial institution. Steve, you're a numbers guy. If you could hit the first two, and I'll take the next two after that.
Yeah, well, I think interest rate risk and liquidity is on top of many minds right now. And all of that's just a result of the volatility in the markets right now. And a lot of the news earlier in the year with Silicon Valley and other banks, and liquidity crunch and all of those buzzwords that have been thrown out. That's definitely a challenge we're facing right now. But I think when you look at a lot of these tools and what you just mentioned in terms of AI and some of what we're talking about in terms of some of the challenges around website development, it's really going to be focused around growth. And if we can continue to grow and stay relevant, we're going to be able to get through this cycle just like we have other cycles in the past.
So, as he said, interest rate risk and liquidity is huge. There's a pressure on fees and net interest income. We're going to face that pressure. The challenge then comes about how long could we be expected to be an ideal place to finance a vehicle when the vehicle can drive itself to you with AI? We need to start thinking about future products beyond our traditional offerings. And if you think about it, even if you were to go to a Walmart or you were to go to a quick service store or transact online, embedded finance, the ability to buy now, pay later at the point of sale, this disintermediates financial institutions, ultimately putting a lot of pressure on us. Another
I
big
think
challenge is how
I
do
was
we
going to just
measure
add,
lifetime value? Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to add to that where you're talking about the disintermediation for financial institutions. A really good example is what you were just talking about earlier with the travel agent and how they've been disintermediated through digital offerings. And when you look at open banking and some of those things that you had mentioned earlier on your previous slide, a lot of those things, you got to start thinking beyond where we are today to go, what could happen with AI? What could happen with open banking? What could happen with some of these embedded finance opportunities? And how do we leverage that in the future to stay relevant and ward off some of those challenges and threats?
Good point. So as you start thinking about this even more, how do we measure lifetime value? That becomes very important. How do we look at who is the ideal consumer to go after? Because ultimately, what we need to do is not just go wide, we need to go deep to enhance share of wallet. Steve, you and I discussed in person yesterday the whole concept around security, cybersecurity, about how we look at things tactically and not as an entire strategy. Um, and a lot of this is partly driven by solutions that are point solutions that are implemented without having a unified approach. So it's almost like somebody got in to your digital infrastructure or your physical infrastructure, but then you forgot to keep checking on them, which kind of leads us to the next one, fraud, especially friendly fraud. And that continues to become a big concern for many, many financial institutions. Anything you'd like to add here, Steve?
Yeah, I think both of those, there's some things that, some aspects that go hand in hand there. And I think those are a really significant challenge. You highlighted those in terms of security on the last slide. And I think that's all encompassing. And right now, you can label it almost as we're victims of our own success because we've really been pushing technology, the mobility of things, and that's led to a new way to rob banks. And that's kind of how we're looking at it. You don't have those traditional movies where people are going in and stick them up. It's now cybersecurity type stuff because that's where the trend's at. And unfortunately, and quite honestly, it's been easy for them to do. And we've got to start making a little bit more friction in the process and making a balance between how we work with our members and consumers to be able to deliver those services and offerings in an easy and efficient way. You call it frictionless, but you got to add some friction to it in order to make them feel safe. And I think the average consumer understands that, but you got to be able to communicate it. And so that's going to be something we've got to deal with, and we're going to continue to deal with. That's another one of those journey, not a destination type of items.
So we'll quickly speak about the next three challenges. And one is about we are traditional infrastructure and we need to have, we don't have the luxury of being a fintech that's developing a brand new infrastructure from start. So technology acceleration is very important. But what is also important is channel orchestration. Basically, the left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing. That part becomes very important. Talent attraction, nurturing the talent and retention in the financial industry continues to be a bigger challenge. But the very, very important thing is, Steve, if I were to come to you when you're the chief financial officer and say, I'd like to invest money, you're going to ask me the obvious question is, what's the ROI? What is the best place to invest for growth? And that continues to be both a micro and macro struggle for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you got to start looking at that different ways too, especially when you go back to measuring lifetime value. There's going to be cycles through that process too, and investing and not seeing that return right out of the gate is something you got to consider, especially with technology and what's going on, how rapidly things are moving.
Good. So from this, we'll do two quick slides and then go into a little more detail. But the next slide talks about, I'd like to put this vision. Essentially, what we have is we have all our channels, and we have to figure out a way to get the many types of consumers we serve. Because remember, we're not just serving the younger person, we're serving the entire platform of consumers. How do we take our personas and guide them through these multiple devices or channels into financial solutions? With this, what we want to do is set the stage for the next part of the discussion. And as I go to the next slide, you'll see that the five big things one has to think about here Anil, if you could just hit the slide, is number one, no one wants to wait. There's a need for speed. Consumers make really, really quick decisions, and they expect your mobile device or the website to respond really quickly. Tracking can be creepy, yes, but on the other side, if you deliver value, the consumer will appreciate what you do for them. The third part we need to think about is AI helps us with the basics. It helps us with the mundane. It can even make us think. And Steve, you said something really interesting yesterday about, are you smarter
Am I smarter?
than an AI machine? I mean, that's part of what we're starting to look at.
No, I think helping making me smarter. When you go through some of this stuff, I'm on the fan side of it. I know there's two camps on this, but I think it helps make us think about possibilities, other avenues. It helps spark things, and I think that's important.
A couple of other thoughts here is, if you have good content, great service, and on-time interactions, that is the foundation for a good relationship, because that's how you take things further. And then, whatever the persona, I know there's some extremes where there's some people who may not be able to interact with you digitally, but overall, the consumer prefers digital. They prefer digital first, but what they hate about most digital experiences is if it's not connected, it is worthless. So we have to think in terms of coordinated, connected experiences that load quickly, track you so they can serve you. There's an AI element to it, and the content keeps changing. Anything you'd like to add here, Steve, before we take it to the next phase?
Yeah, just the one thing I'd add to that in terms of connected experiences, what you just talked about was really consumer facing. And I think we also need to think about that from an institutional perspective, being a back office to front office view as well, making sure that all of our areas are connected and we're not siloed anymore, because in order to deliver that digital first, we have to think digitally and holistically throughout the organization.
Thank you. That's a very good point. Anil, I'm going to turn it back over to you as you continue the conversation.
All right, excellent, Sandeep and Steve. Thank you for that great insights onto what's happening in the financial services industry. What we're going to do is switch gears and take some of the inputs that Steve and Sandeep talked about, and then tell you a little bit about how do you actually make some of those things happen on your digital platforms, on your website. I even though we call it a website, I actually think of it as a much larger thing called a digital platform. So first of all, if you're building a site for your customer, for your bank, for your credit union, you got to remember you're building it for your customers. I know most brands, most people think about who they are first, and they want to talk about themselves. And we got to switch gears, and we really got to go focus on the customer and, what is the customer journey? And these are called micro moments. I want to know, I want to do, I want to go, and I want to buy. And like Steve and Sandeep said, people want to do it anywhere, anytime, at that particular time with speed. Right. So there's a lot of these constraints that are coming in. So you got to build your site that maps to your customer journey, number one. Then along the lines of what Steve said, not only is it important to build it for your customer journey, but it's also important to make sure that the website delivers to your goals as an institution, right? The goals that you want to deliver. And this is probably a conversation point in every meeting that you have inside the bank, inside the credit union, of how do you acquire members, how do you acquire new customers, the deepening of the relationships, how do you broaden the scope, and how do you increase the share of wallet. And the last thing is the retaining. So any digital platform, any website that you build also needs to deliver to your goals, in addition to being able to deliver to the customer journey. So those are the two considerations that we have when we are building platforms for our customers, where we're building sites for our customers. So now let's talk about some of the things that's happening in the digital space. The first and foremost is what I call a seamless digital experience. What that means is no matter where the consumer is, whether they're accessing you on social media, or whether they're accessing you on your website, or they're accessing you on your physical branch, or they're looking it up on one of the local profiles on Google or Apple or Bing, the consumer experience needs to be consistent, it needs to be uniform, and it needs to be fantastic, because basically that consumer experience is an extension of your branch. The second concept, which is very big in digital marketing right now, is what you call helpful content. And what helpful content implies, and it's actually a noun, so it's not an adjective, but it's a noun. It's something that Google is saying is very critical for a good consumer experience. And what it is really putting out content, building the sites, building your platforms for the consumers, producing content, creating content on the site, which is helpful for the consumers. So instead of talking about how great your brand is, you want to talk about how great the impact to the consumer is, or how you can actually help the consumer with what they're looking for. The third big trend in digital world is really a lot of focus, and we'll continue to see this increased focus going forward, is how do you optimize your imagery? How do you optimize for your videos? I know banking traditionally has not been image focused industry, but you can trust me that every human in general like pictures, they like videos. So the question is how do banks take that and capitalize on that trend? We talked a lot about artificial intelligence and personalization, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. And the last thing is local optimization. Essentially, what you have to understand is until you're a fully digital bank, banking is a very local business. People come to you within a certain mile radius. And what your digital presence in that local market, right, on your Apple profiles, or on your Google business profiles, or Bing profiles, or on Facebook profiles, it's very critical, and how you present yourself and how you show people that you are part of the branch. So, I'm going to start off with get the omni-channel experience. To deliver a seamless omni-channel experience, you need a platform that will actually do that for you. It's very hard to have 4 or 5 different platforms and communicate that. So this is an example of a platform that we bring to the table. Of course, there might be others in the market that you can use. But not only does it deliver a website, but it delivers a great mobile experience, an AMP experience. It delivers it connects to your app if you have an app, and then it delivers different levels of personalization or technology for discovery, and more importantly, like local listings. And then the most important thing is you should need to be able to measure how you're delivering all of this, the omni-channel experiences, and how are consumers actually interacting with your assets and with your digital platforms or digital assets. So this is sort of the platform that we use. Let's talk about what are some of the other must-haves. So omni-channel is critical, but getting discovery built in is very important. So there are 2 aspects when you're building a website or you're building your digital platform. There are 2 aspects that are very important. How do you get people to your site? That's a very critical aspect. And once you get people to your site, how do you actually deliver fantastic experiences? And we talk a lot about, I think in general, the world talks a lot about how do you deliver fantastic experiences. But almost as important, if not more important, is how do you actually get people to your platform? And of course, you can use advertising for that. But what you want to do is leverage your content and leverage your branding and leverage your technology to get as many people in without actually having to pay, and then you supplement that with very creative advertising. So to get and this is what you call SEO. I call it more discovery, because SEO is really you're optimizing for Google and Bing, but really what you're doing is optimizing for the consumer, right? If you're and if you look at how Google behaves, or how some of these guys how they're coming up with what makes a good platform, what makes a good site, they're really focusing on what delivers great consumer experiences. So it's very aligned. The most important of consumer experiences is the speed. If your site doesn't load well, it loads slowly, especially on the mobile phone, you're going to find that you're not going to rank as high. You're going to your performance, because what Google is saying is, hey, if this site doesn't deliver a good consumer experience, I don't think it deserves to be higher up on the search results page. The second thing is more technology related, like being able to index and crawl the site. So what you need to do is make sure that the robots that the search engines are sending, they're actually able to get to the content on the site, and they're able to index your images and your content. The third one is very important, which is schemas or structured data markup. And all you're doing is you're basically whatever content you put on your site, whether it's your images or your hours of operation or your location of your ATMs and banks, what you want to be able to do is mark it up with structured data or schemas so that basically Google can get that information very rapidly. It understands in a structured format what content you have. So essentially, you're marking up your content so that it helps with content discovery and for the search engines to understand what content you have. And the last thing, which I always say, you got to measure every single thing you do. So that is really what. So that is a very critical element. The other element that I believe is very important is images. And we talked a little bit about that. I think there's going to be a continued surge in how search engines and how the consumers consume the images and consume the videos. The good news is there's a lot of tools out there for you to make sure that you're actually delivering high quality images and you're delivering images that are ranking are rated as safe. So Google has a Vision API, and what we do. And again, I'm using our platform, but as an example, you could use this with any other platform, or you could go directly to the Google Vision API and do this, but be able to measure the quality of the image and get a quality score, then what you want to do is you make sure that you have a quality score, and then you're using the high quality images on your site. And the quality gets determined by whether the image is pixelated and the light behind it and so on and so forth. The second aspect is this image safe, and what are the different entities that Google's reading into that thing. So there's a whole bunch of things here that come into play, and I believe this is going to continue to get more sophisticated as we go forward. The third key element, we touched a lot about this, Sandeep and Steve touched a lot on this, is personalization. And this has become very critical, right? You're not marketing to a mass market, you're actually marketing to a individual consumer. So if you know that a person on your website visited your site 2 weeks ago and spent a lot of time looking at mortgage, reading up the mortgage information, what you want to do is when they come 2 weeks later, you already know that the person came in because they were interested in mortgages. And you can actually tailor the experience for the person on the homepage so that they actually see more information about mortgages. And that is likely to give you a better user experience for the consumer and a better conversion experience for you as a bank. So that is example of what you can do. There are many, many different ways you can personalize. You can personalize based on geography. You can personalize based on what devices they came from. But I think the ones that I find the most meaningful are, if they're spending some time on they got referred to your site because they were spending some time on a specific directory or a specific site, you can detect that and then serve up the experiences that are unique to them. Let me keep moving. The one big change that's coming to Google next year is what we call Search Generative Experience, which is basically the AI engine powering the search page results page. And that AI engine has been in use, but the big difference is now it's going to become upfront and center. So the user interface, what consumers see is going to change how the site looks. And this is an example of what One Nevada Credit Union looks like on Search Generative Experience today. And you can see that what you want is on the right side, it's showing you the places from where the data is being sourced in the AI algorithm for Google. And you want to make sure that it's your video, which you can see here on this, or it's your website that is providing the information. So you can see this is a perfect combination. You have a Wikipedia, One Nevada website, and a video that was produced by One Nevada that is feeding information into the Google's AI engine about the bank.
I think we need to update our ATM photo.
Right. And and then then as you go take a look at something like this, what does it take to be prepared for search generative experience? There's a whole bunch of elements here. You can see, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but making sure that the content quality, the blogs, the FAQs, the local search profile information, which we talked about, getting that fully optimized, structured data markup on your site so that you are marking up the schemas, and then making sure that you're optimized for your content is optimized for entities. So these are all different elements that you can do. In terms of helpful content, the way we tend to look at it is we look at the customer journey from acquisition, deepening, retention to conversion, and then look at different forms of content that can fit into different spaces. For example, in the banking industry, the calculators, the comparisons, your FAQs, finding a professional if you have branches, or wealth management officers or lending officers. That becomes very critical. You can put videos and informational content and enhance the listings, and then you go down to moving them in case of a financial institution buying is actually getting them to sign up for an online meeting or getting them to sign up to come into or getting an appointment. So it depends on what you're trying to do, but or get an online checking sign up. So it depends on what you want to do, but you want to drive this content. We talked a lot about AI, and what you want to do is, going forward, given the time frame where you want to pick a platform that actually brings AI into the website itself. So that so this is what we have done here is build an AI engine that can generate content which is tailored to your persona, tailored to your brand's voice, and very tailored to specific topics that you need to focus on, and does a competitive analysis. But it can actually write and publish in the platform, which allows you to increase the velocity of content that you have for consumers. And once you put up all of this content, you want to make sure you mark it up. You can see in this case, it's being marked up as a bank or a credit union FAQ page, and then there's different elements that you do. A very critical aspect, very cool trick to get high content visibility. The last thing that I will touch is optimizing your local presence. And you can actually see, like when I search for Las Vegas credit unions, banks for loans in Las Vegas, One Nevada comes in very well. And part of the reason is because of all the content that their website has. But not only does the website have, but the profiles built up on Google and web profiles on Apple, all of the data that you put in. And of course, Google is personalizing these results based on the proximity of the consumer. But nevertheless, you can actually see that once you do that, it does get you very good digital presence. My last slide is there in the deck, and we'll make this available. I'm not going to go through this. This just talks through all the different elements that you need to build in your website. But hopefully that gave you a good perspective of some top 5 or 6 things that you must do to enhance your digital presence. With that, I'm going to take a pause and hand it off to Steve, who's going to talk about what happened when they went through a process of building a site at One Nevada. He's going to talk about a little bit about his experience, what his needs were, and what actually happened when he followed some of these things. So go ahead, Steve. Off to you.
Thanks, Anil. So taking a look at this slide here, the business challenges. Our management team and our marketing team were definitely in sync with some of the issues that we had, and the biggest issue, highlighted here under the disconnected user experience, and some of the challenges facing financial institutions that were highlighted earlier is really what we wanted to focus on, making it a easy, seamless experience for our existing members to go and interact with us, to be able to buy, to be able to learn, to be able to do things, but then also being able to grow with other members that are looking for new institutions, and One Nevada being at the forefront. And the issue that we had with our website at the time was it was too big, very clunky, too many clicks, made performance really hard to track, also made maintenance a nightmare. I know if you're to chat with our marketing folks, they were always just up in arms about what we had to go through, and it made it tough for them to be able to do the different nuances that were needed in order to bring more growth through that channel. Measurement became very difficult too. Metrics, performance, being able to understand what we needed to do became a challenge. And without those insights, we really couldn't grow. So fast forward to our interaction with Milestone. Milestone was able to address each one of those issues that were listed out there. And all of that really summed up to make that rough user experience a little bit better, less fallout. And we believe that at least it was hard for us to know all the fallout on our previous site because we couldn't track it. But our gut was telling us that we felt pretty positive we couldn't get a lot. And a lot of that bore through in some of our numbers when we look at membership growth, loan growth, share growth, et cetera. So Milestones has come in and built out a solution. We just went live late June of this year. So we're still like in iteration number 1. But one of the beautiful things about where we're going is we're already looking at version 2.0. And our previous website that you see here before was very static and stayed like that for many years and didn't really grow. And we're already looking at growing and being more prominent. And I think in the next slide, we could see some impressive numbers that really speak to that. Our overall impressions have increased by quite a bit, increase in clicks, increase from mobile devices. And we talked about how important mobility is earlier. Website clicks, all of those numbers really resulted in about 66% increase in organic traffic, which for us was really important because we were really focused on trying to address some of those issues we talked about earlier, and growth. When we talk about interest income and fee income and all those other things that are needed to stay relevant as a financial institution, we were looking to our website to bring that in, and it just wasn't doing the job before. So all of these numbers have come out to be really good. Here's a few more, and these ones kind of off the charts. I know, Neil, we went back and forth on some of these going, wow, that's incredible, especially given the increase in mortgage and home loan application clicks in a down environment. All that meant is we're really getting a lot more eyes to our site right now. So we're really pleased with that. And a lot of that, I mean, these clicks and the views are all good, but what does that mean in terms of numbers on your balance sheet? And our loan growth this year has been in excess of 20%. We've been able to really ward off a lot of some of that attrition in the shares and in the deposit areas. So that was really good too. So all really good performance here, and we're looking forward to version 2.0.
Very good. All right, we are on to the final slide. Sandeep, you want to take a stab at this, or do you want me to basically some takeaways for the people? And then I think we still have time for questions.
Sure. So I'll say a few things and Steve and Anil chime in. But if you think about it, we go to a news website because the news keeps changing and it's personalized. It's like Steve is interested in baseball, I'm interested in cricket. So we're going to look at different pages. It's the consumer is looking for a personalized experience. So that's going to be one key thing. The second thing is, and Steve, you highlighted this twice today already, which is digital transformation is a journey. It's not a destination. It's not like the physical branch, which you paint, you remodel, and you say, okay, we're done, we're going to wait. It has to keep changing, and we have the ability to change it, personalize it, and take it even further.
I think Neil made a really good point too earlier in terms of digital transformation. And I know we're talking about some of the One Nevada metrics for our website, but that really bleeds into our digital offerings across the spectrum. And it's really important to look at them connected.
So what you said, that's absolutely right. And then AI and personalization unlock simplicity, because if you can figure out who I am, what I want, help me authenticate, get me in, personalize it, I am going to have a much better transaction with you as a consumer. So if you look at it from this perspective, and then Anil and Steve weigh in on this, but if you start thinking in terms of what are key website must-haves for financial institutions. So one is you need to map out your journeys. You need to think in terms of what has to be done what you're trying to accomplish. And I know there's a lot of brands that you can literally close your eyes and click, 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 and find the same stuff there. Um, Personally, I want to have a site which guides a consumer, and that is something that's very important. The second part is around the content management system platform. Anil, you use the word discovery built in. I want to add AI, and I'd like you to elaborate on that a little more, please.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, a lot of times people build the site and they think if I build it, people will come, and that's not true. You build it, you have to figure out how to get people, and you have to actually start thinking about how to get people before you build it, right? And it's just like building a house. You don't just start building a house. You actually plan for how you're going to live in that house once the house is constructed. And and I think the more discovery you can build in it, the less work it is for your own team, less work it's on an ongoing basis. Same thing with artificial intelligence. Creating good content is very critical for discovery, for getting found, and for people to engage and interact with your site. And if you can use an AI tool, you can put AI into your platform, you can put a personalization engine into your platform, you're going to just make yourself that much more efficient. I mean, in the end, all of these things can be done in very different ways. It's a question of what does it cost you, and what does it take to actually do that. And then, when it's too many, like Steve said, then there's too many different elements you have to take care of. Unfortunately, what happens is I tend to do a couple of those and then miss out on the 3 or 4 that also needed to be done.
The third bullet you talk about is optimize for Google search's generative experience. Anil, I know last year when Steve and I both had an opportunity to participate in your brainstorm that you hosted, um, there was so much going on where simple words were uttered by a consumer. And I'm sorry, I'm going back 2 years ago. And Google was able to define, build, do image search, things along those lines. So then why do we have to make it cumbersome for our member or customer when they come to the financial institution's website? I think we need to make sure that we are leveraging the technology where the light comes on its own when you walk into the room. If you have the technology, why not do that? Turn it off when the consumer leaves the room. That's the type of impact you want to have with this. Creepy is good if creepy is helpful. You have to personalize the experience. I know people laugh when I say the word creepy, but the bottom line is my phone tracks me. My best digital experiences are the ones which are extremely personalized, but they come because I'm being tracked. And I think that part is really important. The fifth big thing is something, we all talk about that, hey, our numbers are up or our numbers are down. But we go through and we say, well, we've got the opens, we've got the clicks. Well, then what happened next? And many times, Anil, you said something in the beginning. It's not a website, but it's a platform. And the idea is we need to start thinking in terms of how do you manage your funnel? And to go back to what Steve, you said in the beginning, it's about the impact, measuring the impact of the results. I think those are critical as we drive results. Would you gentlemen like to add anything to these key takeaways?
I think you covered.
Oh,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was just going to comment real quick on the conversions. One of the things that you can have a high conversion rate of 1 of 2, 50%, but you need more eyeballs and more hits or more at bats, if you will. And so what we've got now is a lot more of those at bats, but converting those at bats and delivering that digital experience and making sure that we're reaching out and enabling getting that data that we need to do that is important. And I think that's one of the important things on like content management systems and other things, is being able to enable yourself to do those things.
Fantastic, Steve and Sandeep. I just want to make sure we leave room for questions. We still have 4 more minutes. Steve, I think you've addressed this largely, but there is a question from the audience that I'm going to put out for you. There is a question that a person is asking. I'm in the process of, creating a strategy for our new website that we should have. And can you talk a little bit about how your process worked internally and how did you go about including different vendors in your RFP process and what you did? So that is a question that somebody's asking. Any quick insights? I know we covered a lot of that earlier.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. Really, it boiled down to what we were talking about earlier with just first of all, realizing the need and what we wanted to do and how we wanted to deliver our digital experience to our membership and future members altogether. And we knew that the website was a critical piece. And so our marketing crew went out there and started scrubbing the surface there and seeing what would come out. And we worked with Milestone and went through a really important exercise where they did a deep dive into a lot of the analytics that we were currently seeing and showed a lot of those holes. So that, I think, really opened our eye to the necessity of this and how we needed to get a little bit better in terms of how we offered a seamless experience, how we were able to start thinking about personalization, and how we were able to get them through to conversion quicker without introducing too many friction points and increasing our fallout. So that for us was really kind of how we went through it. We did step through it pretty quick because we knew that it was a need for us. And what we did is not necessarily look at other financial institutions. That was important for us to do as part of the RFP, but we also looked at other retail type of websites and things of that nature to see how do we need to think about things differently as we move forward. And I'm sure our marketing folks can do a much better job at telling you some of those things, but I know at a high level, those are some of the things that we looked at tackling.
Anil, I'll add
It wasn't that just build it and they'll come, even though we did see that movie.
One little thing I'll add to what Steve said is do a proper audit of your website and do it with today's technology. Anil, there's another question out there and it's kind of aligned with content. I'll read the question and try to answer it. It says, how do you prioritize your content when business units, every single business unit wants its content out there? How do you prioritize what to put? I'll start with an answer and I'll let you two gentlemen add to it. One is if you can track and be creepy, you should know what type of content to put in front of what person. That's one part that's very important. The second one is it cannot be static. You have to revolve it to take it further. But gentlemen, I'll let you take a further shot at this question as well, please.
There is a science to it and there is an art on this, right? So, and there is a business part of it. So the business part of it is what business unit is important, where are you going to make your money, and where do you see, you already have that data because you're running that. So I think you got to make sure that whatever content justifies your business, you got to put it out there. Now, how to put that content out there, how much to write, what topics specifically to write about, that information is there are a lot of tools out there. That's what, when we're building a site for somebody, we help with that information. And to tune the content, you obviously can't put hundreds of pages of content because consumers are not going to read them. So you do have to tailor the content. But I think I really say start with your business first. Always, whether it's digital, offline, it doesn't matter. What's important is what is your business, what is your differentiation, what is your value proposition, then use the tools to figure out what consumers are actually looking for and try to map the two. Steve, that's sort of what
that's exactly how we addressed it, because we did have those specific questions from different business units. And that is how we attacked it. But then also bringing everybody along the way and soliciting their feedback and input is very important too.
It's a destination. It's a journey. It's not a destination.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, I think we're just about out of time, so we're gonna wrap it up. Sandeep, Steve, I know your time is very, very valuable, so thank you so much for joining this webinar series. I am positive the audience found it very informative, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to do this for the audience. Thank you, everyone, and hopefully everybody enjoyed this. If you have more questions, our moderator put some links on the chat. You can copy those and then reach out to us, and we'll be happy to put you in touch with the right person or answer your questions offline. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.